Lonely Monk Productions. I don't know if y'all have seen the video for Stupid Things I Do by Jason Ager, produced by Leah Menaker yet, but yo.
That's my Jawn!
Hey, yo, displace the guilt and embrace the pleasure. You're tasting things that don't need to be measured.
What's good, friends and family, neighbors near and far? Welcome to an all-new episode of the Yo, That's My Jawn podcast. The podcast, website, brand, movement, way of life dedicated to the embrace and championing of your passions. I'm your host, Nate Runkle, a.k.a. Johnny Mathis, a.k.a. Nate 3.0, back at it again with yet another episode of the podcast. As always, I hope this podcast finds you all in good health and in good spirits. On today's episode, I am joined by Matthew Taglang and Dave Perry of the band Athensville. It's an absolutely amazing conversation about not just their music, but so much more. And I want to expand on that in a minute here, but let me get some housekeeping out of the way. First, the big news. I was invited back on the Risk podcast, and my latest story dropped last week and is available now wherever you get podcasts from. They tried out this new format for this one, which is more conversational storytelling in its approach. So this is me and my pal Kevin Allison sitting down and me telling him a story from high school when me and a bunch of friends broke into an old abandoned animal research center. And of course, hijinks ensue. I can't tell you the feeling of joy that consumes me listening back to this and hearing every time that I make Kevin laugh. That dude was responsible for so much laughter I have enjoyed throughout my life. So to pay that back, even in this tiny setting, man, it makes it all worth it. I'll have a link to that in the show notes, or you can visit www.risk-show.com and you can find it there. All right, what else? There's a new episode of the Oops All Bards Behind the Scenes Barbecue, which will be dropping on Thursday, as well as the latest Too Old, Too New sometime midweek. Keep an eye out for both of those. You can follow us on the socials at Yo That's My Jawn for all the latest goings on. And there's a lot goings on for sure. Or, of course, you can always sign up for the mailing list. You can find a link to do that and much, much more, including merchandise, previous episodes of the pod, guest appearances on other pods, and yada, yada, yada at www.yothat'smyjawn.com. Cool. I got that out of the way. Okay, so I said at the top of the show that we talk about more than just music in this interview. Well, one of the topics that we talk about here at length in my chat with Matt and Dave is the wrongful imprisonment of Tyree Wallace. Tyree is serving a life sentence and has spent the past 26 years in prison for a crime he did not commit, based on the testimony of 3 questionable witnesses and absolutely no physical evidence. The Innocence Project, who is representing Tyree and trying to get his conviction overturned, is able to show that the evidence provided by these 3 witnesses was the result of police intimidation and coercion. And what's remarkable to me is that being locked up for 26 years for something he didn't do didn't break Tyree or make him jaded. While in prison, again, for a crime he did not commit, Tyree founded the Man Up Association, a peer support and empowerment group that does work both inside and outside of prison. And this all comes up because Matt and Dave not only wrote an incredible song bringing attention to Tyree's case, but Dave is also on the team trying to get him out of prison. And in the middle of our interview here, he actually receives a collect call from prison from Tyree. And so I get to chat with him for a brief moment, and that is included here. One other note before we get started, though. You will hear us discussing an upcoming trial date that may overturn Tyree's conviction. And that trial just happened last Monday. And while it did not result in Tyree's release, it was successful in getting his charges reduced from the life sentence for murder 2 down to conspiracy to commit murder 3. And what does that mean? Well, I'll read you what Dave told me in his follow-up email. Quote, Judge will lean towards 13.5 to 27 years, which means he maxes out on February 24th, 2025. But we will lobby for 13 to 26, which means he comes home September 18th, the day of the next hearing. Why might the judge care to hold him until 2025? Because a prisoner who serves their whole sentence as opposed to exceeding their sentence by virtue of retroactive resentencing doesn't have the ability as much to sue for $1 million because you kept them in too long. And if you look at it this way, as of now, he is no longer a convicted murderer, nor does he have a life sentence, end quote. You can read more about Tyree's case and the work to get him out of prison at www.freetyreewallace.com. All right, let's get on with the interview. My guests today are an indie alt-rock band from the Philly area who, as you will hear in our interview, were fated to make music together. Along with Ed Moman on bass and Brian Scooter Hassinger on drums, they are set to release their upcoming EP, Crossed with Lightning, which tackles subjects ranging from social justice and civil discourse to the human capacity for change, delivering a decidedly modern take on indie rock. On October 5th, they will take the stage at the Dawson Street Pub for Athensville Under the Influence, a night of covers of songs that influenced the band. And on November 23rd, they will be celebrating the EP release at 118 North in Wayne, PA. Folks, it is my honor to welcome to the show Matthew Taglang and Dave Perry of the band Athensville. Ladies and gentlemen, I am joined today by the great Matt Taglang and the great Dave Perry, the great Athensville. What is up, gentlemen? Thanks for joining us today on Yo, That's My Jawn.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having us. Thanks for having us.
I'm so excited to finally get a chance to talk. Just to let the listeners know, I always like to give a little backdrop on how I know each other, or how I know or am familiar with the guest. And we met at Inside Hustle during the Philly Music Fest back in, what was that, October, I guess, and had a great conversation. And I've been really excited for the EP release and all, so that we could get this conversation, so you guys could finally get on, and I could get an excuse to talk to you for an hour or so. So thank you so much for coming, man.
Awesome. Absolutely.
Thank you.
So I always like to start things in the Wayback Machine and kind of just get a understanding about the youthful versions of my guests. So we'll just kind of bounce around and tell me a little bit about growing up, where you grew up. We'll start with Matt.
Where did I grow up? I grew up in Telford, Pennsylvania, which is north of Lansdowne, south of Quakertown. Went to Southern Area High School. Was involved in a lot of music and a lot of sports, and had a pretty idyllic childhood. My parents were both school teachers, so we got to do some summer trips, lots of summer trips, and got the bug for traveling, and I've done a lot of that in my youth, and continue to do so. That's my youth. Went to Penn State, a main campus. Was in a band up there. That's where I got the rock and roll bug. Crossed paths a little bit with Dave. Never really met, but we literally crossed paths. He saw my band. I heard of his band. So
That's awesome.
that's my youth.
Dave, how about yourself?
Ditto. No, partial ditto, half ditto. I grew up in Lafayette Hill, outside of Philadelphia. I went to Plymouth White Marsh High School, where, I would later learn, Matt's father taught for many, many years. I went to Penn State, where I would later learn, or knew, Matt went for 4-ish years. And I do remember actually seeing Matt's band, because I'm pretty sure he was wearing a thin tie. I can't unsee it. Grew up outside Philly and still live outside Philly, as does my mom and my sister and my brother. And, eventually Matt and I would be introduced, and as time went on, learn all of these things that we had so much in common.
Yeah. So you're both in Penn State and you're both playing music. What were those bands? Were they original bands, or like cover bands, or?
Yeah, a little of both. And it's funny, like when we think about it, there's actually a piece that links us together, and that is Scooter, who you probably know from the Grape Room, fame of the Grape Room, and who is now our drummer. He was Dave's friend, first friend that Dave made in the dorms at Penn State. And Scooter was also the drummer in a band called the Dirges. And the Dirges were a kind of a sister band with my band, who was called the Sounding. We were two of the few bands that at the time were playing progressive alternative rock and roll, when most bands in State College were pretty traditional, playing, Brown Eyed Girl and Rolling Stones covers, and we were playing the Smiths and the Cure and the Pixies and Echo and the Bunnymen and REM and all those bands, and as a result, like the Dirges and the Sounding kind of became friendly, and I kind of crossed paths with Scooter a little bit. So I knew Scooter in one way, Dave knew Scooter better in a different way, but Dave and I never met. But now the three of us are in a band together, so that's
That's
kind of
wild.
yeah.
Dave, what was your band?
We were called Since When? I think because so many times people were like, "Since when are you in a band?" And eventually it was just like that will have to be the name of the band, and it became the name of the band. And we
They
used
could
to
call us
play.
Since Why.
Yeah, Scooter and I met the first day of college, so we have known each other a long, long time, and we used to jam together. We used to do a lot of 10,000 Maniacs jams. I remember there was a female singer, and she was really good at the Natalie Merchant pieces. And so, I've known Scooter, and just he's always been just one of the greatest humans that I've known. Just such a cup half full human being, and the kind of person you just never get tired of being around. So our band, yeah, like Matt said, my band too. If I go back and look at those old set lists, like we're playing Gene's Addiction and Pixies and Midnight Oil and U2 and REM. And I have a recording on cassette of my singer at the time talking in the mic about there's these two bands, they're both very popular, one of them, one of them's running around in skirts and blah, blah, blah. And the other one's, balls to the wall. And this is them. This is Pearl Jam. And he was comparing Nirvana and Pearl Jam. We were about to go into a Pearl Jam cover, which, people barely knew Pearl Jam and Nirvana when Matt and I were in college. But that was a long time ago. But yeah, we've always had a love for all of those influences.
Yeah, it's so like man, I'm gonna do the math here real quick. I guess like 20 years ago now. Jesus Christ. Was when I was like playing out and all. So like, I don't know if Scooter remembers me or not. Probably not. But I the Grape Room was and Grape Street before that, and then that other location when it was on Main and stuff. Like I was always like, I loved that place so much. I still do, even though R.I.P. the Grape Room. But yeah, just a great guy, and like he was the one who, I think, based off of just playing open mic, was like, "Hey, do you want to play a show here?" And it was like, I do. I would love that. Like that's my dream. Like so, yeah. No, I totally get it. Like he is just a all around good dude. When did you start playing guitar or start making music? Like when did you high school or were you earlier than that?
Dave?
I began playing guitar. Yeah. Middle school, high school.
Yeah.
I took lessons with a guy who I'm still friends with, who's now out there with his own band, and his brother's out there with a band, Judah Kim's brother. So Joe Kim and I used to take guitar lessons together. And I would drive and pick him up and drive near his house and take lessons. And so, yeah, that I just remember my mom had a friend who had a guitar, and I borrowed a guitar. And then when I got to a point where I showed that I was, interested enough, my mom took me to get my first guitar, which I still have and I still play.
That's
so
wild.
Yeah, been a long time I still take lessons today.
Yeah.
I still try to learn and expand and become a better player.
That's awesome.
Okay, for my part, I started playing music as early as I can remember. I was that 5 or 6 year old kid who just started playing around on the piano that I could barely reach, and my mom got me lessons right away, and I was playing piano recitals all through like elementary school and even up into middle school and high school. And in high school, I Started picking up my brother's old beater guitar, which only had 4 strings. It had like the low E and then the top 3 strings. And that was enough. And I played pretty much a 4-string guitar through all of high school. And then when I went to college and joined the sounding, and I was the lead singer for the first few months. And then the rhythm guitarist quit. And our lead guitarist said, well, we're not going to break up. So Matt, here's a guitar. And he pretty much locked me in a bedroom and said, you need to learn. And at that point, I knew all the cowboy chords, but I couldn't even play like an F sharp minor, and the ones that took a bar. The ones that were like, you really have to. You're not just playing to be able to sing along. You got to play all the chords. So, we had a show 5 days in the future, and there were about 3 chords that I didn't know how to play when the rhythm guitarist quit, and I was almost literally forced into a bedroom and said, you're going to sit in here and practice these chords until you can play the whole thing. And Jim Cochran, thank you very much for forcing me to learn how to play all of the chords that you need to play to be in a rock and roll band, to be a rhythm guitarist, at least in a rock and roll band. So kind of pushed into being a rhythm guitarist, and have been that ever since. Would never pretend to be anything other than a rhythm guitarist. I don't even consider myself a guitarist, but now I've got a pedal board and a nice amp and a couple of guitars, thanks to Dave and Lou at Roxy Music.
That's great. It's funny you say that, because like I've been playing I've been playing more years I've been alive than I've not played, and I still won't call myself a guitarist. I'm like, I just kind of dick around, I've only been dicking around my entire life, I guess, but you know what I mean? Like at some point I guess I should probably own that, but but no, well, I think I'll continue.
Matt's guitars still only have 4 strings today.
It sounds like that. When I'm sixth of a guitarist.
When you're ready, you can have a G and a D.
I was going to say, if you took those strings off, do you think you could play it like you used to?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it'd be a lot easier, actually.
Just think of the gimmick, like I remember the presidents of the United States of America, they ate off of playing with 2-string bass for how long? You know what I mean? Like,
you have to earn that 5th and 6th string.
It's like a black belt. You get the stripes. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's exactly right. So like, when did like songwriting enter the picture?
Oh, I mean, for me, I have actually been writing songs and still have my song sheets that I wrote out by hand. I still have them, and I was writing those as soon as I was playing. And, if I go back and look, I mean, some of them are about the Cold War and Russia and peace and, all the stuff that the bands I was into in the 80s and the 90s were into and were speaking about and writing about and singing about. So I would write songs. I'm not sure that I have any single recording because I didn't really have the equipment to do that. But I would write out chord sheets, lyrics, chords, as far back as then. But it would be a little bit. I didn't really delve that much into that when I had a band at Penn State. But then when Matt and I got together, then our songwriting sort of life took on what would become our current situation.
Yeah. Have you revisited any of those to mine for anything, or?
I haven't revisited any of those old songs, but when Matt and I wrote a song this weekend, I revisited something that I had written. We were revisiting a couple things I had recorded from 10 years ago and 11 years ago. But ultimately, I think the song we wrote this weekend, I had written over a year ago, or at least a riff around which we based would result in a song. But I do try to keep a lot and go back and sort of, favorite things. I'm like, okay, that's going to be something to come back to.
Yeah, it's an interesting exercise to kind of go back and look at things that like you just kind of put aside or never finished and go like, hey, there was clearly something here. Why did I leave this? Like, I recently, because, it's 2024 and you have to create as much content as you can. I recently went back and found like a bunch of old, like, punk rock songs I wrote when I was a kid and stuff like that. And there's some stuff in there, like lyrically it will make me roll my eyes, but like melody and chords, like I would gladly kind of sit on right now and maybe, try to pull something out if I had any kind of free time in my life whatsoever.
Yeah, that stuff stays fresh. Like the lyrics you write when you're, maybe more immature, younger, more naive, or something like that. Like you said, easy to roll your eyes at and throw away. But the chord structures and chord progressions, they kind of don't get old. So like what we call songwriting now, like what Dave and I do with songwriting, is a lot of it's revisiting stuff, like chord progressions that he's written, months or years even ago. And then a spark hits for me and I'm like, oh, that could be this vocal line. And then all of a sudden it morphs into a verse and a chorus. And then we take something else and turn that into a bridge, and something that has very old parts becomes a very new song.
Yeah. I even, one of the things I find really interesting is like, I know more about music now than I did then, yet sometimes those songs, like I would never make that chord change. I would never put that there. I would never do that in that bridge, but it works. And I'm just like, wow, I wish I could tap into that mentality, but also with what I know. And I guess revisiting it is the only way to do that,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. What was your early songwriting like?
Mine, well, as a little kid, I would sit and write chords on a piano and write, little kid words to it. And that became like kind of like little love songs in middle school and high school. And then, never really liked any of it, honestly. Anything that I've written completely alone, I've always been like, yeah, a day later, I'm like, that's dumb. I don't like it. And then in college, in the band, The Sounding, we wrote 4 or 5 originals that we really liked. But we never kind of had the wherewithal to like do anything with them. This is pre-internet. Like, we're not going to get signed by a label or anything like that. Like, we were a very successful cover band with 5 or 6 original songs that people were like, oh, that's nice too. And then we actually moved out to Colorado together. We lived in Boulder, Colorado for about 6 months. And then the band imploded, and we kind of didn't talk for a few years. And then I wasn't in a band again until I met Dave, honestly. And then Dave and I started off as doing covers. Like, he would just come over to my house for hours and hours, and we would just play all of our influences, the REM and the Cure and the Smiths and the Pixies and Midnight Oil and In Excess and all the bands that we love. And we actually, were pretty content with that. And then we had a party at Dave's house and played all these songs. All our friends and family came and they said, you guys should keep doing this. You should look for gigs. And Dave is a creative beast. He was like, well, I don't want to be in a cover band. I kind of at that point in my life probably would have been happy with being in a cover band. In fact, I was just happy making music again. But Dave's, honestly, he's creative and he wants to do his own thing. And he kind of unleashed this treasure trove of chord structures, and it was something real, Dave. It was the lick that you wrote for Something Real, the song that became our song that we released first from our full-length album. I heard that lick and I thought, I've never heard that lick before, but it sounds like a song that I would love, and let's make that song. And so that was really the spark. And I was like, oh, we could be an original band because he's got all this stuff, and we can write some lyrics and melody lines, and that would be a lot of fun. So that's kind of I've never felt like a songwriter before the last 5 years with Dave. So, yeah.
That's killer. What brought you two together? Like, how did you two? I mean, you kind of had connective tissues throughout your lives, but what was the actual thing that kind of put you in front of each other?
Dave, want me to tell the story?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So, total kismet is the answer. Unbelievable happenstance. Very, very good luck. A very good friend of mine. In fact, my oldest and best friend, Joe Walsh, not the Joe Walsh, a Joe Walsh. We call him the Joe Walsh, but very good friend of mine. His band Devil's Pool plays in Chestnut Hill a lot. I give them a plug. But Joe Walsh is a dear, dear friend of mine. He had a daughter, has a daughter who had cancer many, many years ago. And long story short, he started a nonprofit for families of cancer patients very similar to his daughters. That's a long story short, but he started a nonprofit for this group of people. And Dave's daughter and Joe Walsh's daughter are best friends, are very good friends, and they actually live together even today in Philadelphia. They're both college graduates. They live together. So Dave's daughter and Joe Walsh's daughter are very good friends. So Joe and Dave became good friends. So another link between me and Dave. First there was Scooter, now there's Joe Walsh. Joe Walsh had a benefit for his nonprofit, and he invited his good friend Dave and me. And we met there, and Joe brought us together and said, you guys both went to Penn State. You guys were both in bands. You like the same music. You have to talk. And Dave and I probably talked for an hour that day, even though he was kind of one of the stars of the show. He was one of the organizers of the benefit. I monopolized his time. We ended up talking about music. And at the end of the night, we said, we're going to get together and play music. And that was in 2014. We haven't stopped.
That's amazing. You know what's wild is like it's funny because anybody who regularly listens to this show is going to be like, you say this enough, Nate. I'm starting to think that you do. But like, I'm not really like a spacey woo-woo kind of guy. But it does feel, doesn't it, like the universe was definitely trying to put you together for a very long time. You know, it just kept trying to put you in contact until you finally made it.
There are more connections than we've ever said. Like Dave and I both shared this story with each other once. I had my wedding was in 1996, and we got married, kind of a non-traditional wedding at an inn in New Hope, and the reception was at what is now Manayunk Brewery. It was a farmer's market back then. We rented out the whole farmer's market, and we had a band, and we didn't look for traditional wedding bands. We didn't want the chicken dance and all that. So Lisa and I went and looked for a cool band, and we thought a Zydeco band would be kind of cool. So we went to see this band called Zydeco A Go-Go, and we saw them I think it was the Trocadero then, and we saw Zydeco A Go-Go, went up to them after the show and said, do you ever play weddings? And they're like, well, not really, but here's our card. And we called them, and they played our wedding. And then, Dave?
So I got married in January of 99. So I guess in 98, my wife and I were planning our wedding. And I said, I do not want a traditional wedding band. We lived in Mount Airy, and we had these neighbors, Pete Eshelman and his wife, Pam. My wife's name is Pam as well. And we would see them, and Pete was the founder of this band, Zydeco A Go-Go. And we said, we should have a Zydeco band. They're like, Zydeco is the essence of rock and roll and the sort of Fats Domino origin of rock and roll, and it's party music. I mean, it is inherently party music.
You can't not
So we hired Zydeco A Go-Go, and then and it was amazing. And out of our wedding, I think 2 or 3 of our friends hired Zydeco to play their weddings, because it's just such and I maybe for a while I think we might have been like their first wedding, but then when I eventually met Matt, I was like, maybe we were their second wedding, because Matt, we've been married since January of 99. He's been married since 96, but we both hired, like, who does that? But
it's so insane.
Right.
Like the number of like just identical, even as far as going back to like your dad teaching at his high school and stuff like that. Like it's just, it's wild.
There's another insane one. This is a real brief one. My dad was a football coach in like the 60s. He was a football coach at Plymouth White Marsh High School, Dave's high school. This is crazy. This one's crazy. And it was a Friday night, October 16th, 1970. And my dad was coaching a football team, and it was a tie score, and a field goal kicker went out to kick the field goal. My dad told him before he went to kick it, he said, if you make this field goal, I'm going to name my son after you. He made the field goal. His name is Matthew D'Annunzio. I'm named after him. Matthew D'Annunzio went on to become a lawyer at Dave's firm, and Dave. It's insane.
Come on, man.
I mean, it's crazy. It's true. The universe is really making us be friends.
Have you guys done like 23andMe yet? Because I bet you showed some DNA or something.
I've done Embark for my rescue dog. Is that
Oh, yeah. I shouldn't make a joke about this. I did 23andMe last year and found out my dad isn't my dad. So
No way.
You're not the
Yeah.
first person I've heard say this.
yeah, it was one of those
You're the
things where
third.
like really that yeah. There's actually a podcast out there. It's called NPE
Yo, that's not my
something.
dad.
Yo, that's a yeah. Yo, yeah. But it's
You're not
it's
my
like
Jawn.
it's
Yo,
like
are not my dad.
it's like the NPE, but it stands for like not parent expected or something like that.
Oh my
But
God,
like
really?
because of the how much people are doing 23andMe and all, there's all of these things that people are finding. I know, so like I did actually went on this podcast called Risk. It's a storytelling podcast, and I told this whole story about it and all. And I started getting emails from like friends and stuff like that who were like, I've never told anybody this, but something very similar happened to me. Like, it's just been absolutely crazy, like how many people have found things out like this, later
Right.
in life. Like, I think the craziest thing about it was at 40. When did I get that? I guess I was 45 at the time, about to turn 46. So in my 40s, finding out that I'm also half black. So like
Fascinating.
my joke was when my wife came home, because I was kind of sitting on the sofa in shock. She was like, I was like, I got my 23andMe results back, and she was like, what did it say? And I was like, I think I don't have to self-edit when singing Wu-Tang Clan songs. I don't know, like like. But
That's on the yo, that ain't my race.
that's right. That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah, so it's wild. But yeah, so the universe like really did everything it could to put you together, and happily say I'm glad, because like you guys are making killer music. So you said you started jamming 2014, or started kind of talking in 2014. 2016, you put out the first EP, right? Or is it a little later than
No,
that?
we took a little bit of a hiatus. 2015 was a bit of a wash. We didn't really get together much. And then 2016, we started to play in earnest together. And it actually wasn't until the spring of 2017 that we had that party and then started playing out.
Oh,
And
okay.
we wrote 5 songs, and we got into the studio that year, 2017, and finally released our EP in 2018.
Okay.
So our 5-song EP proper, it's called Athensville proper, was released in 2018, and then yeah, that was when we first started recording.
Tell the listeners kind of the name, where the name comes from.
Sure. Athensville was the original name of the Philly suburb Ardmore, home to the Ardmore Music Hall, where we eventually ended up playing. But we first started, I was living in Ardmore at the time, and one of those times that Dave came over to my house, he saw the historic marker sign that says Ardmore, welcome to Ardmore, formerly known as Athensville. So from like 50 to
1853 to 73, maybe, or
something like that, about a 20-year span in the late 19th century, it was known as Athensville. And in fact, there's still a lot of references to it. There's like Athens Avenue. The parking lot next to the Ardmore Music Hall is called Athensville Parking Lot. For some reason, they spell it with 2 T's. I'm not sure why, but it's called the Athensville Parking Lot, which is kind of fun. When we played there at the Ardmore Music Hall, we got to park in the Athensville parking lot. We pretended the whole parking lot was ours. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, even people in Ardmore don't see those signs and don't know. And we say, yeah, it's the original name of your town. So it's kind of fun. That's the origin of the name.
That's cool. And then like, there's a little touch of like, REM there, like you get you get a little bit of that. It tracks, like it fits. I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a total coincidence, but yeah, we do cover REM, and they're definitely one of our influences. And we did actually get to meet Mike Mills a couple times. Dave and I went to see his band, The Baseball Project, and we also went to see a tribute band that he's in for Big Star. And we actually got to have beers with Mike Mills, the greatest guy, the nicest famous person you will ever meet. Not that I've met any others, but he has to be the nicest one. He was literally showing us pictures of his dog on his phone. He's an absolute sweetheart of a man, and in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So we got to meet him, and we told him our band's name, and he was like, "Oh, are you like a cover band?" We're like, "No, it's the name of this town," because we met him in Ardmore. So he thought that was kind of cool. So that was amazing.
That's so incredible. Yeah, the baseball project. I was making a joke to somebody. I'm like Peter's there, Scott's there, Mike's there. I'm like, can someone just get Stipe to just come like hang out? Like, what are we doing? Like, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
it's
I know.
wild. And you mentioned Big Star, like that number one record is like to me like one of the greatest albums ever made. Like it's just like Ballad of El Goodo like absolutely moves me to tears at times. And it's just pure sonic reasons, nothing else. Like it just sounds like an emotional high to me. So like
Hmm.
yeah, love that stuff. I love that
Yeah,
stuff.
Yeah, they're
we're
coming
going.
back.
I heard that. I heard that.
We got tickets right there.
Yeah, I think we have front row tickets.
No, really? Wow.
I think we do. Front row center. I wasn't supposed to tell you, but now you know.
That's pretty cool.
But
Has
yeah, I actually didn't discover Big Star until within the last 8 or so years. A guy that I knew around here, actually that Joe Walsh knew, would play, and I remember he was playing a show and he needed a guitarist. He's like, could you play this gig? Like, but you got to learn these songs. And I looked at the set list, and they were almost all by Big Star, and I did not know Big Star or their place in things at all. Of course, now I mean, they're really the definition of these sort of like, what was I missing? Like, how did I miss this kind of a band?
Yeah.
For so many people, they're sort of like how did I completely miss this band once you discover them? But for me, it's like that song Daisy Glaze. Like to me, that's just a genius song. Like, man, that's the stuff. But um, even just to see them as we will with the original drummer and then the guest musicians, it's just great to hear those songs brought to life because they're brought to life by some pretty good musicians.
Yeah. It's wild. I was just talking. I have this other show that I started with Bruce from WXPN where we just do music discovery. And this week's episode, I mean, this will air in 2 weeks. So 2 weeks ago's episode, we talked about the Paste 300 greatest albums list that they just released yesterday.
Right.
And there's so many albums on there I'd never heard of in my life. Like I was just like, you made this up. This isn't a real album. And then you go and listen, and it's like, wow, this is really great. And like that kind of being able to still find something old that you missed, but can still become like one of your favorite things ever is to me like the magic and beauty of music. Like there's always something out there to discover, and as long as you're curious and you want to still find other things, you can find it, and like that just makes me happy. Like
Yeah. I mean, I discovered Nick Drake way too late in life. I was like, oh my God, where has this been? I mean, every one of those songs is just magical. I mean, almost impossible to cover. His guitar playing was phenomenal. His lyrics, his voice. Like, and I mean, I don't think I heard it until that Volkswagen commercial covered, I think, Pink Moon.
yeah.
I was like, wow, I'd have to hear more of this. And same thing, like this music's from the 70s. Are you kidding? Just beautiful.
Yeah, and then I get angry that like I'm like somebody should have told me this 20 years ago, like 30 years ago. Like
Totally.
why did I have to find this on my own in a Volkswagen commercial?
Yeah. Yeah. I was that way with Kraftwerk too. I was like, wait a second. When's this music? This is from the 70s and this sound is yeah.
That's like, I was always into, a lot of times finding things is like finding, tracking down people I love's influences and stuff like that. And a big one for me was like, I'm a big alt country guy, or was, and then to like discover like Graham Parsons was like, oh, holy shit. Like everything that I love about music actually was occurring 20, 30 years ago. And I could have, I could have been enjoying this the whole time, but it's wild. So the new EP Crossed Lightning, coming out in the fall. Do we have an actual date, or are we just kind of
Yeah, it's called Crossed with Lightning.
or with sorry.
And Dave, September, I want to say
September 6th.
September 6th. It's being released. It's being released as a complete EP that day, and that will be the sixth song. The sixth song will drop. It's called Waves, and then all six will be out. Right now, three are out. The fourth song, "Floating Over Flood Waters," will drop on June 29th, Dave? June 28th.
28.
And then a song called "Changeable" will drop in August.
July.
Oh, sorry, late July.
26.
And then
July.
the sixth song and the complete EP. So each song has had its own artwork, and then the whole EP of six songs will have its own artwork, and that will be complete on September 6th.
You know what? I'm really glad you mentioned the artwork because very, very awesome, kind of interesting. What's the idea or the theme behind the art of each single? You know, you've got the megaphone makes sense for Desert Dorada, and you know we'll go into each song or whatnot. But artwork wise, what was kind of the impetus behind all of that?
I think Dave had the idea of like an object with wrapped in art, and the art, so like the first one is a megaphone wrapped with that collage work, and then we want to promote local artists and some connections that we have. So the first one is actually my niece. Her name is Emma Visnoff, and she did the collage that is the work that is the artwork that is pasted onto the wrapped around the megaphone. And then Dave, you want to speak of the others?
Yeah. Bury the Lead. Matt and I both have very talented nieces and nephews, really talented artists. Matt's niece, who's really good at collage work. I have a niece who's really talented at photography. I have a nephew who's really talented at art and freestyle and just painting and drawing. So we thought we would sort of commission our nieces and nephews to deliver us pieces of art. We would tell them the song and tell them the lyrics and the name, see what they came up with. And then we chose an object that had some connection to each song. So Bury the Lead, for example, being a journalistic phrase that is a little bit off the beaten path for a lot of people, but there it's like a handheld camera, like a Zapruder, old style camera. In fact, that camera pictured there was my father. My father bought that camera at some point. I don't know when, but I have it. I have the receipt for it. He bought it used. And so I know the original owner was from Delco because I still have the receipt. And I know that person bought it in 1962 or something. So we took essentially that camera. That one is wrapped in actual photography that my brother's niece had done. It's newspaper, news themed. It's photography. It's sort of collage style, but it's newspaper. So that object was wrapped in that way. My brother does all the design. He's a creative director, Steve Perry, not the Steve Perry, just like not the Joe Walsh. We know a lot of doppelgangers in our
your
life.
neighbor, not the John Anderson, but John Anderson.
Right. I mean,
they should put a band together.
I know. We're going to try to introduce my brother, my neighbor, and Matt's friend Joe. But and then the latest single, Still Got Time, which has an image that's sort of earth-based. The artwork on that, again, is collage art by Matt's niece, different style of collage on that one, and just had a really good movement to that piece. But there's a lot of design that went into that particular one. If you saw how it started out, you'd be amazed at how it could come out the way it is. I mean, it's actually a pretty amazing image on which we wrapped this art and got it to look the way it does. And so It has a lot of movement, and the song has a lot of urgency to it. And yeah.
And I like how it came out that it's like an earth wrapped in my niece Emma Visnoff's artwork collage, and it's exploding, or it's kind of in a state of either coming apart or coming back together, and you can't really quite tell, which is a metaphor in itself. Like, is the world, coming apart, or is it coming back together?
Yeah.
So it's really, I love that artwork that Emma and Steve Perry put together.
It's awesome. Like the covers are absolutely striking, and they definitely stood out, and they were definitely something that like I know a lot of thought had to have gone into because they're beautiful.
Yeah, there is we put a lot of thought into our visual since we began. And we're lucky to have, help and people around us that are talented in that arena. So it's really enabled us to come up with something other than just like asking ChatGPT to make us an album cover.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, sure. So the first single, as we said, Desiderata, Free Tyree Wallace. Tell everyone briefly, and then let's kind of talk about Tyree Wallace and his case and kind of how you came towards to be involved with it.
Dave, you should definitely take this one.
Yeah, I guess that begins with me. So in my normal day job as a lawyer, I actually I'm not a criminal defense lawyer, but as a pro bono aspect of my practice for about 4 or 5 years, I've been representing Tyree along with a couple of other folks trying to get him out of prison. Tyree is a wrongfully convicted man. He served over 26 years in Pennsylvania prisons for a murder or participation in planning of a murder that he had no involvement with at all. No physical evidence, no presence. It's not like he was there. So as I got to know him, it really began actually with an intellectual property question. Tyree had developed a program, sort of a self-help peer program at the prison. It was doing very well. This is pre-COVID, and hundreds of prisoners would gather every Saturday and go through this program and try to tackle a topic and improve themselves and become better men. It was called Man Up. And Tyree had questions about the naming of it and the curriculum. And those were intellectual property questions. He was working with the Innocence Project. They asked if anyone would be willing to answer some questions. I agreed. And I went to see him. And as I got to know him, eventually I began to realize he really needed more of an advocate just for his own effort to gain freedom. And so I sort of got more and more and more involved. And at one point, he had actually delivered a pretty amazing keynote for a local nonprofit. And his theme was desiderata, that which is desired. And for him, it was justice is desiderata. It's a really powerful speech. Matt and I were writing songs on a weekend up in the mountains a couple of years ago. And I was like, Matt, you really should watch this. It's pretty amazing and inspiring. And so Matt watched it, and I think it sort of spawned the lyric and the name of that particular song.
So Dave and I both grew up with, very cause-related rock and roll, REM and U2, and my first thought, yes, we were on a kind of a writer's retreat. The two of us had a bunch of riffs, and we wanted to put it all together. And watching that, Tyree Wallace was kind of an aside. It wasn't for inspiration. Dave was just dealing with this case, and he's like, "You got to see this." And so I watched it, and you can't not be inspired. It's amazing. He's an incredible speaker. He's got this great cadence. Kept coming back to Desiderata. It was almost like a song in and of itself. And I was like, this should be a song. Like we should make a song out of this. But I was very hesitant to write some kind of like like a Biko song, like Steve Biko song.
Sure. Yeah.
Peter Gabriel, like this, like kind of sappy, kind of like, free Tyree, kind of like, I'm resistant to doing something that's almost feels trite. And then Dave had this riff that was completely opposite of that. It was just this hard driving rock song. And I was like, let's do that. Like, let's make it just a straightforward rocker that it's one of Dave's, my favorite riffs that he's ever come up with, but it's not like it doesn't have like a ton of space in the verses for, a lot of lyrics. If you look at the lyric sheet of that song, it's very short. I say things like man up and redemption. And, a lot of the things that Tyree was kind of talking about, and a lot of things that Dave has told me about Tyree, like there's a lyric, man up closer to redemption, planting 501c 501c seeds, which is a tongue twister, but not many rock and roll songs have the words 501c in them. And I just thought like this is where we want to go with this song. Like, let's just make it about Tyree, but make it a straightforward rock and roll song. Yeah.
The one thing about the case that kind of stood out to me that I didn't know, and I don't know if I'm going to guess you probably know the answer, but maybe you don't. What, how did mandatory life sentencing on, especially or essentially a conspiracy charge? How did that even come about? Like, why such a strong blanket for,
Good question.
participation, essentially? Not even participation, just planning.
I think the answer is around 1995 in Pennsylvania, when there had been some recidivism and some bad stuff that happened. The political momentum swung back against it and Pennsylvania became a very, very harsh right-leaning state when it came to that. Not even just on the right. Certainly, Bill Clinton and many others on the left get a lot of credit for swinging pretty harshly on that issue. But third-degree murder, for example, in Pennsylvania was 10 to 20 years until around 1995, and then it became 20 to 40. But Pennsylvania has this crime called second-degree felony murder, which basically means that if you have any role or involvement whatsoever in a murder, you go away for life without the chance of parole, period. Now, the law has been chipped away a little bit. Originally, they were doing that to juveniles, and that was overturned as unconstitutional. So about 6 to 8 years ago, juveniles were able to apply to be resentenced if that had been their sentence, and many of them were resentenced and freed on parole for the rest of their life. And currently, there is a case pending that could affect people like Tyree, which is, could it be unconstitutional for, we'll call it the non-shooter, to not have a chance for parole? That's the kind of thing that would affect Tyree and about 12 to 1,400 other men, mostly men. That case is actually pending before the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. They just agreed to hear that case about 3 months ago. So, yeah, it's a pretty harsh law. Other states had it, reformed it. California is one of them. Tyree was unlucky enough to be 19 years old instead of 17, like one of the co-defendants who's been free for 6 years. Tyree was 19. So he was an adult. Now he's 46 years old. He'll be 47 in about 5 months. He's tried to reach me all evening, but I haven't been able to get to the phone to get it. But he could call while we're on this Zoom. On Monday, we have a hearing, and his life could change this coming Monday in court.
That's so intense. That's so absolutely intense. And the thing that I'll point people in this direction. What's the website address? The Free Tyree.
FreeTyreeWallace.com.
The description, to hear him talk about the victim, who played such a role in his life, makes it even more heartbreaking. Not that it's not already a devastating story, but my God, I implore people to check out the website.
That's a really astute point for you to pick up on, because John Kang, Mr. Kang, was a hero to that neighborhood. And in fact, I can tell you that on Monday in court, because I've talked with Tyree and read about what he's planning to say, the first thing he talks about is Mr. Kang and the murder and what happened to him and the role that man played in his life and the life of that neighborhood, because it was sort of like at least double sort of cut to him, to not only see that man taken down, but then to be accused of it and convicted of it.
It's unbelievable, and I hope for the best on Monday, and I feel like I believe he's got a good team with behind him, and not just behind him, but he himself is such an amazing person that like I will never understand someone not being moved enough to at least hear the case again. Like that's the other thing, is to even just offer the chance to present the evidence or whatnot. Not even like that's one of the things that I never like. I understand that the system is flawed, but like just to even have the chance doesn't to not be able to be given the chance like
That redemption, right? Yeah.
It's absolutely devastating, and I just hope, I really hope, because I mean, he's a really inspirational person. I mean, reading about Man Up and the program, not just for people incarcerated, but people who get out and the work they do. Like,
well, don't take it from me. You should talk to him yourself. You should have a Zoom with him.
I would love to.
I could arrange a Zoom with him. I have all kinds of Zooms that I arrange for him. I have 25 of them on the calendar in the next 2 weeks. God willing, he's not in prison after this Monday, but still, you should talk with him. He's an amazing person. And the irony is, I don't think he's heard the song yet.
Really?
I don't think he does have access to Spotify, so I'm not sure if he's heard it, but needless to say, it's not easy to get access to media and such.
Of course. It would be kind of funny if he heard it and he was like, it's kind of mid.
Yeah,
totally. He's seen me on the news. He's seen me on TV. He saw Athensville when we were on HYY. During COVID, we did a recording. We were on HYY. And the first person I knew who saw me was not my family. It was Tyree in maximum security prison. He's like, I saw you on HYY. And I was like, you did? I haven't even seen it.
Wow.
But yeah, we also, Matt, you should talk about the video that we got coming out.
Well, we don't know when it's coming out, but we don't even know how it's going to end, because depending on what happens June 10th, we'd like it to have a very positive ending. But yeah, we were in contact with a rock video producer, and I guess it was May 13th, a couple weeks ago. We filmed portions of the video. We were lucky enough to have access to 118 North in Wayne. The owners there are friends of the band. Our bass player is a former sound man there, Ed Moman. So we were able to use the space there, and we made a little rock video. It was kind of fun. But it's very much, the theme is social justice and Tyree Wallace. And, we're way too old to make an MTV style rock video. Hey, look at us. We really kind of cringe at the thought, but the thought of promoting the Free Tyree Wallace movement and cause is 100% the reason why we would make a music video. So we made it in service of that cause.
It's beautiful. I admire you guys for doing it. I beyond admire you, Dave, for being part of the, trying to get him out. It's wild. And like I said, I wish the best for Tyree and for the case. The one other thing on the singles that have come out that I want to kind of touch on, Bury the Lead is 6'8", my guys. Like, God damn, that's tough. Like, that's why'd you do that to yourself? Like,
Dave has a collection of waltzing clothing, so he really just needs to air it out and get it dry cleaned. And we just wanted something to dance to, right, Dave? You just needed
I'm because I won't let him sing in German, but I'll give him a 6'8".
Oh, yes, you will.
He'll
let us play in an Austrian time signature.
That's so cool. That's so cool. Well, you guys want to go through the jauntlet at this time? This is my question that I ask everybody, that I put everybody through. It's the tough questionnaire. It starts with the one-hit wonders. We'll go Matt and Dave on these answers. First one, Billy Joel or Elton John? Who do you prefer?
Billy Joel was a childhood favorite. Yeah, Billy Joel also was my very first concert. So Billy Joel answers two questions on the jauntlet. So yeah, definitely Billy Joel.
Awesome. Dave?
Billy Joel, Glass Houses.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting when we find that you have the same answers for all of these as well. Because
Not going to happen.
Not going to happen? All right. All right. Number 2, Debbie Harry or Joan Jett?
Are we going me first every time?
Yeah, sure.
All right, Joan Jett. I mean, Runaways, it's classic rock and roll. I mean, I love Joan Jett. Still do.
Joan Jett, no doubt.
Uh-huh.
I saw her I just saw her for the first time only a few years ago. I had a conference that they had hired her. But I just, rock and roll, you can't beat it.
Yeah.
Every year I kind of get hung up on something and I bring it up way too much. And this year it's, I just rewatched Light of Day, and she is so perfect in that role. Like, that role is so perfect for her that, like, it's not even that she's a great actress. She's just such a great musician that you just believe everything she presents in that film,
She's super cool.
The next one, Aretha Franklin or Tina Turner?
Aretha, for sure. For so many reasons. Aretha, her cameo in Blues Brothers is legendary. Aretha.
Aretha.
Uh-huh.
We should do this blind, like dating game stuff. You shouldn't be able to hear my.
I was just gonna say, we should get you to write them down, and you should answer for each other.
Yeah,
and see if you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Next time.
Don't worry, I'm not influenced by Matt.
That's true. That is definitely true. I'm not one of your influences.
Next one, Nirvana or Pearl Jam?
Oh, jeez, Louise.
Nirvana. Definitely Nirvana. I wish they lived longer to make more albums. And I wish their albums had more really good songs on it. Honestly, like, I think they were still just developing. I think In Utero showed that, and I don't know. All Apologies is one of my favorite songs, and I felt like they were getting somewhere, and then they didn't.
I agree. In Utero, Nirvana, first song on the album in particular, was sort of like the genius was just being revealed.
Yeah.
But that's a tough one, Nirvana and Pearl Jam, for sure, because, if I had only ever heard Given to Fly, I could very easily look at Mike McCready and Pearl Jam and be like, it's hard to get much better than that. But as between those two, for me, and influences and just sort of how they sat, I'd pick Nirvana.
I get it. I'm a diehard Pearl Jam guy, so like, which is weird because, like, I was talking to somebody about this recently. Like, I can't remember the last full, probably Backspacer, like Dark Matter was good, but like full Nirvana album that I've loved, or not Pearl Jam album that I've loved, but like they consistently will have like one or two songs in the album where I'm like, you still got it, you still know exactly what you're doing. You know what I mean? Yeah, they're great. Next one, Janis Joplin or Stevie Nicks?
I have to admit, I don't really know much Janis Joplin. I mean, and I love Stevie Nicks, so I would definitely go Stevie Nicks. I mean, I could listen to Rumors, on a deserted island. I love Fleetwood Mac, and I honestly never really got into Janis Joplin. So Stevie Nicks.
Janis Joplin.
Oh my gosh, you guys disagreed on something.
I'm out of the band.
I am not a decided Fleetwood Mac fan, although I did recently get into that Lindsey Buckingham, the guitar, one of the crazy guitar songs that was just fascinating. But I'm not a Stevie Nicks devotee. And not that I know a lot about Janis Joplin, but I know where she sits in sort of the origins of 60s rock and into the 70s, and if I'm right about the timeline there, and yeah, Janis.
I love Stevie Nicks and Tom Petty, Stop Dragging My Heart Around.
Oh, that's a good
It
one.
was freaking great. Stevie's amazing in that. So
I have this. I've never said this, but I have this thing with Janis Joplin where I don't know that I will ever be able to truly enjoy her, and it's not even her fault. It's because I used to DJ karaoke, and if I ever hear me and Bobby McGee one more fucking time in my life,
I can only imagine.
it's not even her fault. The next one's the big cliche: the Beatles or the Stones.
Definitely the Beatles, but I'm definitely seeing the Stones next Tuesday. So,
Oh, nice.
yeah, I mean, songwriting, the Beatles, it's just more complex and more interesting. I think the Stones, admittedly, they're just wanted to be the best blues band in London, and they overshot their goal. And I mean, they have a lot of great music, but I think just the combination of the songwriting, influences of Paul and John and George. There's nothing like it. I think there's no comparison. Beatles.
Ditto.
Yeah.
No question. All I listened to till the age of 13 was the Beatles.
Yeah.
Nothing else on my sister's record player but the Beatles. And then I would eventually have Hot Rocks, Stones on cassette on family trips in the back seat of the car and listen to that on my cassette Walkman. But there's no comparison. And I love the Stones, and I will also be at the show next week for the first time ever seeing the Stones.
Same.
That's awesome. It's wild. When I was a kid, I used to love late Beatles. Like, I was just like, these guys are genius, and I can't really get into like the more poppy stuff. But as I got older, like then I was more drawn to the poppy stuff than I was kind of the experimental and spacey stuff that came later. And now, I think Beatles for Sale is my favorite Beatles album, right in the middle. You got to go, like, you get a little bit of the, a little taste of what's to come, but also still you get to live in the poppiness. So nice. That's my little Beatlesness. The last one of the one-hit wonders: Bohemian Rhapsody or Stairway to Heaven.
Actually, Tyree's calling. You want to talk to Tyree?
Sure.
All right, hold on. I'll see if I can.
This is a collect call from Tower.
Can you hear that?
Individual at SCI.
Can you hear that? Okay.
State Correctional Institution. This is a private call. It will not be recorded and cannot be monitored. To accept charges, press 1. To thank you for using Securus. You may start the conversation now.
Hey, hello.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. How about yourself? How you doing?
I'm good. I actually have you live on a podcast that Matt and I are doing with a guy named Nate. We were talking about the Desiderata, and he was asking me about your case, and we were talking about you. So since you're calling while we're filming this Zoom podcast, I figured I'd answer the phone and give you a little platform.
And I appreciate it. So tell me a little bit about the podcast, please.
You want to describe what you're doing?
Yeah, certainly. Tyree, first of all, we just talked about your case and I was just talking about how just incredible of a human being I find you to be. This podcast is called Yo, That's My Jawn. It's I interview musicians and creatives and just kind of try to champion people I wish people paid more attention to. And I would 1,000% love to talk to you sometime because I think someone should hear. I think more people need to hear your story, and I think I think you are absolutely you deserve some justice here.
Wow. That sounds phenomenal, and I appreciate the work you're doing. Appreciate you giving me the opportunity to have my story, to highlight my story. Really am. Had a lot of different opportunities to get my story out there in some way, shape, or fashion, and I always am very appreciative when people afford me this. Just the real basics of my circumstances. I'm incarcerated for a crime in which I had absolutely no involvement. It is my belief that if you remove procedure and technicality, that the evidence of my innocence is absolutely clear. the issue that I am having and my legal team, David Perry, Scott, of course, here Bradford Gray is having, is that we're in a legal system. And it's about what can we get in front of the right people to care about it, that it's not for some reason prohibited because of procedure or time bar or all these other issues that have nothing to do with right or wrong, that have nothing to do with justice, that have nothing to do with seeing someone released from prison who did not commit a crime. That is what we consistently have been battling over 26 years. A prime example of that, just to make sure that I'm illustrating properly what it is that I'm saying. In 2018, the only eyewitness of the crime came forward and acknowledged that I was not involved in the crime, that he had never seen me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. A total exculpatory statement on my behalf. When it was time for him to come to court, he didn't show up to court for whatever reason. The court, the judge at that time threw the petition out, as opposed to continuing it until we found the witness, knowing full well that would mean that issue had now been adjudicated and we wouldn't be able to argue anymore. So there's an eyewitness who saw what had been out there, and we can't utilize it. We can't bring him forward and utilize his statement or his testimony as evidence. And that has just happened over and over and over and over again. And, it keeps rearing its ugly head. But, the reality is we are in a, somewhat favorable position coming up Monday. With my team fighting for me the way that they are, with all of the people going to show up to the courtroom and all of the prayers and all that type of stuff, I believe that we'll have a favorable outcome in about 4 days.
I hope so. I really do. Like I'm really, I got you in my thoughts, and I'm really hoping that this works out, because what I was telling the guys here is, not only do I find that the justice system failed you, and not only is it a crime to me that you are in the position that you are in, but I find you incredibly inspiring, because even with all of that, like you've done so much with Man Up, that like I think you are an incredible human being, and I really hope that Monday goes the way we want it to.
Thank you for that. I genuinely appreciate that, and while I do acknowledge that a lot of the things that I've done. When I sit back and I look at it, they put a lot of it on paper for me, and sit back and look at it, and I'm like, wow, this is a lot. It really is these people of goodwill coming together and helping to support me, because I want to do a lot of these different things if these the people weren't coming together and wanting to support me. It would be an almost impossible task. Other than what we're able to do from a prison organization inside of here, but a lot of the things that we're doing on the outside, the community cleanups, all of those types of things, the gun buybacks, all of those types of things that we're doing in the community. While it's my vision and it's me pushing the issue, it's you all out there coming together and making that possible. So I'm just grateful for that.
You're an amazing person, man. I really hope that you can receive the justice that's been taken from you, and I really hope that someday we can sit and have a conversation, because I would love to talk to you, man.
Once I'm out of here, absolutely, 100%. And so yes, I'm committed to that. I'm looking forward to meeting you in person and continuing this conversation. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's a matter of when.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe
not
it.
A matter of if.
I believe it.
Agrees with that. It's I have to go ahead and change my vernacular there, like and make sure that I start saying when and not if. You are correct about that.
Yeah, and Tyree, we were talking about your keynote and Desiderata and Justice's Desiderata and how it inspired Matt and me to write this song in Athensville. I was saying I actually wasn't sure yet whether you had actually ultimately heard the song on Spotify or if you haven't yet really heard. Yeah, so you haven't heard it. And the video obviously is not yet done. Hopefully in about a month or so, maybe we'll have, Matt and I were talking about this, it's Free Tyree Wallace is part of the name of the song. And the way we sort of fashioned it, it's a command, it's a verb. But I hope that by the time our video comes out, it's an adjective, and it is a free Tyree Wallace, and it's a vehicle for us to raise not just awareness. And now we're raising awareness for people similarly situated, and we're raising hopefully money for Tyree to live on. I mean, you don't come out, no one gives you a check when you come out of prison, but Tyree has an amazing group of supporters that includes Matt and me and everyone who we can introduce to everyone I can introduce to Tyree and his story is an opportunity, not for me, really for him. And you never fail to take advantage of it in a positive way.
Thank you, Dave, man. The reality is, the value you bring to my life in this fight, man, it's invaluable. Your value is invaluable. And all this, a lot of the stuff that I'm able to do is because of the access that you give me, man, from the phone calls to the virtual visits to the introductions and, to groups of people and, all that stuff, man. It's given me the ability to do it, man. I'm glad you came to man up that time. Well, yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of people, Nate, who in my work, I work with, in my normal day job, I work with people from all over the world. And so they all sort of know about this work that I'm doing because maybe through the music first. And then Matt and I had this idea that it would be a gateway to telling Tyree's story. And that has worked. Every person one more person that we can get to hear it that way is worth it. And so there are people in Norway, in England, in Australia, there are people in India waiting to hear what happens on this coming Monday, who will be writing me and saying, like, what happened and how's it going and how's Tyree and what's going to happen next. And something good's going to happen on Monday. The question is, how good can we make it? And we're working, we had a pretty hard working session on that today, and we're going to be working on that tomorrow and until Monday morning when we're in court. And I know that's not your typical Jawn, but it's our Jawn, I guess.
No, I'm telling you, man, like this episode is set to release 2 Mondays from now. So I really hope that when I present this, I'm only presenting it with positivity and happiness. That's music to my ears. That's my Jawn right there, I guess. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. So Dave, one quick question. You think that the rest of your strategy session went well?
Yeah, it did. And we can talk. You can give me a call back tonight if you have a chance. I'll be leaving here and headed home eventually. But yeah, I mean, we're going to be geared up and ready to go on Monday. And I know you're going to have a long day on Monday, being, Tyree has to be prepared and brought down from past you, right? Past Skip back Collegeville, all the way down here to Center City. So it's a particularly long day for Tyree. But we'll be ready, and there'll be news reporters there. There'll be a packed courtroom, and there's just been, we've been working on this, Tyree. You've been working on this for a really, really, really long time. And I know I've been working on it for a while, and Matt and everyone in our orbit's been witness to this for a long time. So there's such an array of people watching and waiting and texting me and asking, and, all walks of life. It's a pretty diverse group of people, from students, high school, college, to whatever.
the guy who made our video, Tyree, this is Matt, the singer from Athensville, the guy who's made our video for the song Desiderata is waiting to see what happens on Monday to see how we can end the video. So hopefully it starts off with a frame that says Desiderata Free Tyree Wallace, and the video ends with a frame that says Desiderata Tyree Wallace Free. That's our hope.
Wow. How about that? Let's get a storybook ending, man. Come on, let's that's up to you, Dave. Let's get a storybook ending, man. Come on, man.
Well, this is, I mean, that's the thing though. Like I even with the storybook ending, I don't see it as an ending, because I think as soon as you get out, I think you have nothing but incredible things ahead of you. I think
to begin.
Yeah, Tyree, we had that discussion yesterday. That's what I like. What I want, one thing I want the judge to hear on Monday is, you can unleash this person in our community tomorrow to help the community, to help these kids in elementary schools, to
You have
help
1 minute left.
to help fight gun violence, not just to start doing work anew, but to continue the work that he's doing. And I want the court to see it like, you know what, that is something the court could do. They could do that. It's within their power.
Yeah, man.
Thank you all. I'm extremely appreciative. Didn't expect this, but glad I did. It was a little energy picked me up, man. I needed it, and I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Give me a ring later and we can reconnect on preparations.
See you Monday, Tyree.
All right. I see you on Monday, man.
All right. Take care.
That's my joke.
Yeah.
No.
Well, there you go.
So anyway, Bohemian Rhapsody.
It was Bohemian Rhapsody or Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah, that's right. It all feels stupid now, doesn't it?
Right. I was like, how can we go back to that? How can we possibly?
It's only stupid if you go with Bohemian Rhapsody. No. I'm going to have to go with Stairway, but, Stairway.
No, so how about that? That was good timing, huh?
That's wild. That's absolutely amazing.
I mean, I don't know if you've ever spoken to anybody on a prison line. 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Especially someone as well spoken as Tyree. And I mean, on cue, he says, "That's my Jawn." Are you kidding? Yeah. That was gold.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. It's wild.
Incredible.
But yeah, like that, but that process, I mean, like, yeah, like the collect call, time starts, like it's not, you're in it.
Yeah. There is a 1 minute warning there.
Yeah.
But it's hard to live your life, much less organize your life or carry out anything. How do you carry out business or any kind of affairs in 15-minute increments? But over the course of a period of time with lots of these calls, and we also Zoom calls that I'm able to secure for him, those are 45-minute Zooms. I can get almost as many of them as the prison system has on the calendar. It's sort of like reserving slots. Whatever's there, I can grab them. There's 3 that day. I can grab all 3. And that's one other way he communicates. And in-person visits, those are, of course, a lot more time consuming and a little bit more of an undertaking. But I'll go up there and then I can sit for an hour and a half, 2 hours and talk about stuff. But yeah, that's interesting. So I guess he hasn't heard the song.
That's wild.
Which it'll be pretty cool when he's out and he can really just sit down one day and listen to it and listen to Matt's lyrics, and the plays on words that are in there that describe Tyree. So like Matt said, this was sort of it's our version of sort of the political rock that influenced us.
I hope he likes it, but he's one of the very few people on the planet who does not need his awareness raised about this particular issue.
Yeah.
So,
it's like, hey, that song sounds familiar. I think
I hope he likes it. It has his name in it.
Yeah. That's wild. The second half of the Jauntlet is the top 10 countdown. In this, we use Jawn to be whatever you want it to be. It can be music, can be anything you want. The first one, what was your first, Jawn? What was the first thing you were obsessed with when you were a kid?
Does it have to be music related?
No, it can be anything you want it to be.
Pop rocks.
Yeah?
It's my first memory of something that I was like, I can't believe these things exist. Yeah, pop rocks, definitely. Dave, same answer?
What's that?
Same answer?
Soda with Pop Rocks. No,
Yeah.
no. The Beatles without
Yeah.
a doubt. The Beatles. It was all about the Beatles for me.
That's great. Number two, what's your current Jawn? What are you into right now?
What am I into? Gosh, I'm into keeping everything together, keeping everything in its right folder. Just took my house off the market, so I'm back into the house that I'm living in and making it as beautiful as I can. So I did like an hour and a half of weeding after school today. I know it's not the most rock and roll answer, but totally into weeding right now. Dave, same answer? Dave's into pop rocks now.
Don't Obi-Wan me. I have to say, not surprisingly, I mean, I'm into trying to get Tyree Wallace out of prison.
Yeah.
Can I redo my answer? Jesus.
You feel dumb now, don't you?
My God. I do want to change it though. I'm totally into my kids right now. Like having 2 children home from college at the same time. This is the 1 week this summer that I have both my kids home. So like when I knew that I had this podcast, although I was looking forward to this, I was like, I'm going to miss an hour and a half of hanging out with my 2 children who are right outside this door right now. And I don't get that very often. So that's my Jawn right now. I'm into my kids.
All right, you're telling me to go faster. I get it. Number 3, what was your first concert?
First concert, I said Billy Joel.
Oh, yeah, Billy Joel. Right.
My parents took me to see Billy Joel at the Spectrum. That was the Iron Curtain tour. Yeah, so Billy Joel, he was definitely hopped up on something. He came running out on stage. He was definitely on coke. He came sprinting out on the stage, jumped up and grabbed the curtain and swung back and forth from the curtain. And that was just the craziest thing I'd ever seen at that point. And yeah, Billy Joel put on a great show back in the day. Dave?
What year was that?
Probably 84.
You were there, weren't you?
No.
Oh, okay.
The Cure.
Oh, very nice.
The Cure, 1986 Spectrum Showcase.
That's so cool. That is awesome. Good answers for both. Good first concerts for both of you. Like great ones. Number 4, what was your last concert? What was the last live show? I know you guys got the Stones next week, but
Last thing I saw, actually, I did not see much this spring, but in the winter, January, February, I saw a band called Prill, Prill, Philly Temple band. Former student of mine, her name is Hannah Rusi, is the bass player. They played at Silk City. So yeah, big like local band, Prill, super good. And also I saw my buddy Joe Walsh's band play they're called Devil's Pool. They're at the Mermaid. What's it called? The Mermaid Inn, Dave? The Mermaid Inn in Chestnut Hill. So those most recent concerts I've seen.
Oh man, I go to so many shows. It's actually a hard answer because my memory is now blurred. The last show. Oh, I know. An Australian pop artist named G Flip.
I know that. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know G Flip?
Yeah. I used to DJ, so like I get a little.
I just saw them in Atlanta.
Very cool.
With a couple Australian friends of mine said, let's come along and see this. They're really popular, sort of champion of the LGBTQ community. And it was a really cool spot, an old place called Terminal West in Atlanta. Used to be like an old little railroad terminal. It was a great little spot. So G Flip was the last concert that I went to.
That's awesome. Number 5, what was your favorite concert? What was the best show you saw?
Best show I saw was in Boulder, Colorado. It was Hot House Flowers, an Australian band.
Irish.
They're Irish. They're Irish, right? Hot House Flowers opened for Midnight Oil.
Oh, man.
So, I mean, Hot House Flowers, I'd never heard of them. And they were like, wow, surprisingly great. And then Midnight Oil just absolutely blew the doors off of any other show I've ever seen. Peter Garrett's energy on stage is like no one else. he's just pure positivity and spirit. And you just feel like basked in the warm glow of Peter Garrettness. I remember there was like a little mosh pit going on, and he stopped the show and he like stepped, like this guy who's enormous and, you know, and towering, bald, imposing figure. He didn't jump into the crowd, but he definitely made sure the security was like, boom, boom. They stopped all the music, and then got the most huge, you know, round of applause for just keeping order in this fucking great rock show. And yeah, Midnight Oil. Also, 10,000 Maniacs opening for REM in the Work Tour on my 17th birthday was a pretty great night. So
Holy shit.
too
Yeah.
amazing. And I got to tell Mike Mills that that was my favorite concert. I didn't tell him about the Midnight Oil one. I was like, that was my favorite concert. So he was pretty psyched about that.
You know, Mike Mills listens to this podcast, and now he's going
Totally.
to be
Yeah,
no.
of course he does. Yeah. Dave?
One favorite concert, boy, that is really hard, but I would have to say September 12th, 1987, U2 at the Spectrum, Joshua Tree Tour.
Beautiful answer.
We were in the same building. We were both there. Yeah.
And that one doesn't actually surprise me. That
Everyone
makes
in our
sense.
generation was
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. There's this woman, Nancy Burrill. She wrote this book called I'm Not Holding Your Coat. And it's all about the early 80s punk and hardcore scene in Philadelphia. It's an incredible memoir. But she tells a story about right before I think it was the first time U2 was in the US, they were at a record store during a snowstorm and hung out with Bono, who was just there shopping. And like, I'm just like, come on, like, you have lived the craziest life. It's wild. Number 6, who have you never seen live who you wish you would have? They can be living or dead.
the Smiths, and they're mostly still living.
But you'll never see them together.
We'll never see them.
Yeah.
No, yeah, the Smiths, I would like to have seen them. I saw Morrissey and I've seen Johnny Marr. And I wouldn't like to see the Smiths now because Morrissey's kind of a tool.
Yeah.
But I would like to have seen the Smiths in 1986. Yeah.
You know, as much as Morrissey's a tool, I will say his the thing that he released when Sinead O'Connor died, I thought was the most brilliant thing about a celebrity death and kind of this, you know, how we forget celebrities while they're here and then want to act like we have been loving them our whole lives. I thought it was really incredible.
Yeah, he's I mean, I say he's a tool. That's a little bit simplifying. I mean, he's definitely a complex character, and there's some things that I agree with, and obviously some things that we all, you know, that we might disagree with. But I think he's a tool because he cancels so many shows and makes so many people like pissed off because you're going to see Morrissey, then you're not.
Yeah.
It's I know it's a joke, but it's literally happened to me twice, and you know, it was already a joke, and then it happens to me twice. I'm like, really? Like, that's just. How can you have a sore throat and cancel your show? Like, suck it up. Play the show. The show must go on.
Yeah, totally. Dave?
Oh, boy.
You've seen everyone.
I have seen, I mean, the next week it'll be the first time that I see the Stones, although I did see Keith Richards play a few songs once. But I would have to say the original lineup of Big Country.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's
I
great.
I would have loved to have seen Stuart Adamson play when he was alive.
Great answer. Very great answer. I'm like, and like, I would have never even thought about it, but yeah, the fantastic answer.
When did he die?
He hanged himself in the could have been 2002 or something. Hanged
I
himself.
saw Big Country in 1995, the summer of 1995.
Really?
At a festival in Germany, just by coincidence. It was in Karlsruhe, Germany. I was studying German, and my good friend that I made there at the institute I was studying, his girlfriend was being an au pair in Karlsruhe. So the two of us rode our bicycles from Schwäbisch Hall, Germany to Karlsruhe, which is like 60 miles or something like that. And just so happened to be a big country concert in a park, like right across the street. And we went and watched it it was free. We just walked into the park, and we were really far away from the stage, but it's phenomenal. Yeah. So I guess I achieved your dream, Dave, but you've seen way more concerts than I have.
You complete me.
Yeah. Did you see the Smiths in 86? So No?
I've only ever seen Johnny Marr, and I am going to see Johnny Marr with James on this upcoming tour. But
Nice.
I've never seen Morrissey, and because of his toolness, I'm not really dying to try.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's brutal. The meat is murder stuff it's hard to watch the video production behind it with
Yeah.
the murdering of meat.
Yeah. Number 7, name a unappreciated John, something you wish had more shine to it.
I'm gonna steal one from you, Dave, because you introduced me to this band, but no one has ever heard of them. A British band called Elbow, which is one of my absolute favorites right now. It has been for the last 4 or 5 years, and they just came out with a brand new album, and it's phenomenal. Things I've been telling myself for years is the name of the title, the first song off of that, and the lyrics are beautiful. It's an amazing band.
Isn't
The
it?
guy, the first listen, you can hear the voice, and I thought he sounded just like Peter Gabriel. That was my very first superficial impression, but he is much more than that, and a phenomenal vocalist. Great music. They put a lot of time and thought into their chord structures, and their songs are great. Elbow, silly name. I don't like the name, and everyone I talk to, it's like, well, that sounds dumb, and they're a great band. Elbow.
Underappreciated, Black Rebel Motorcycle Club.
Good answer.
I
like
just,
it.
I love that band from start to finish, all their different aspects. The album they recorded in Philly, the blues influenced phase, but that band is just so good.
Good answer. Good answers. Number 8, favorite album, which I know is a shit question, but hey, entertain me.
Start to finish, REM, Life's Rich Pageant is, in my opinion, a perfect album. From begin to begin to Superman, just awesome. Every one of those songs to me, I mean, it just hit me at the right time, it came out when I was like, whatever, 15, 16, 17. And my group of friends, that was like the album that we listened to over and over. Joe Walsh being one of those friends. We listened to it over and over and over. And that group of friends and I just got together this past April and we listened to that album, and it's just like coming home. So without a doubt, Life's Rich Pageant by REM.
Okay, that's a tough question. It's a toss up for me, maybe between 2 or 3, but
You get one Jawn.
damn, the Joshua Tree.
Good answer.
But Revolver is a very close second, as is Octone Baby.
Okay. All right. I like it. I like it a lot. Did you get to see any of the Sphere shows?
Twice.
Son of a bitch. Was it
Magical.
amazing? Was it amazing?
Magical. Mind blowing.
There's a possibility I might be talking to the guy who runs the Sphere and for the show, and I'm really interested in that as a venue. Like I just because it seems very limiting in the kind of band that can perform there, right? But the bands that can perform there, it seems like it would be the best show you could ever see of them.
It made me at times kind of cry because while it's massive, and I felt like it was the tallest physical indoor space I've ever been in. It felt like the ceiling just went on forever, and maybe it is the tallest indoor space, but there is something so immersive with the video and the sound there that I've seen YouTube 45 times, but even still, after all that time, you could still cry. It was just like mouth just gaping, like, wow. Yeah,
It's incredible. That's absolutely incredible.
If you talk to them, like let them know, like other than October 5th, I think we're busy, November 23rd. Otherwise, Athensville totally open to play the Sphere.
Yeah, totally. I'll put a word in. I'm sure he'll listen to me. Number 9, name an artist whose output you'll consume anything they release.
Shoot, I didn't think about this one. I mean, truthfully, I've been listening to everything Taylor Swift has been releasing over the last 5 years. I mean, I'm just addicted to her. Like my daughter is a fan and got me hooked. And if I'm honest, I listen to her albums as soon as they come out. So that's as close as I can come to, an artist that I consume everything that they come out. I think she continues to amaze.
Absolutely.
In so many ways, honestly. My family's going to see her this summer in Vienna.
Oh wow, that's great.
Yeah.
My buddy's daughters just went to the Paris show, and said like it was life changing, like just a life changing show.
Yeah, she's amazing. I mean, obviously, she's breaking every record out there.
Yeah.
But I think as a songwriter, I really appreciate what she does over and over. And with, the same limited amount of chords that we all have and the same amount of lifetime of grist that you could possibly create, she continues to come up with new kind of themes. And people say, yeah, there's a lot of repetitive in it. Yeah, sure. Of course there is. I just think she's really great.
Hell yeah. Dave?
Well, almost every band that I listen to, I consume everything that they put out. However, there are only a couple bands that I've sort of dedicated to being a completist and collecting. And so other than the obvious, which for me would be U2, I'll say Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark.
Oh wow, yeah, man.
I have every single thing they've ever put out. And I just discovered 2 days ago, somebody posted online a 7-inch single that they had released in East Germany at a time when I guess in East Germany, they were allowed to get one Western release a month. And 1 month it was a 4-track OMD 7-inch, which I don't have. And apparently it's not that rare, but I've never seen it. So I just bought one on Discogs yesterday, being shipped to me from Ukraine.
Wow.
Because I'm a collector.
So it's funny you say that, and because this show for a while was charting in the Ukraine, and I have zero idea why. Like, there's no reason why. But like, I was like, don't you guys have something better to do?
I think
right now?
yo and Jawn mean something totally different in Ukraine.
It must. That I was wondering that, like, if there's some kind of weird translation.
Maybe it's oi and they were reading it backwards, or maybe in Israel it's oi and it resonates there. No.
Well, I will say it did coincide around the time that Eric Bazillion was on the show, so I wonder if they just have a big Hooters fan club in the Ukraine or something.
Oh, I love the Hooters.
They're great, man. They're great.
I just lent a guitar strap to I think was it Eric Bazillion? Yeah, I think I just lent my guitar strap to him. He was playing at our local synagogue, and they called me up, and they're like, he got a new guitar, but he didn't get the pegs put on yet. So at the Martin factory, so he needed a guitar strap, so I ran it over, and he played the men's club at the synagogue.
That's awesome.
That was my second concert, the Hooters. At North Penn High School.
No way. Yeah. That was like, I think one of the first things I talked to him about was like, that was a point of pride for our school, man. Like the Hooters were there.
They won that contest, and then it was, I was at South.
Were you at North Penn?
I was, yeah.
We tried. We did not win that. We were at Plymouth Way March. We didn't win that contest. We really wanted that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Still could have gone, Dave. You still could have gone. The Hooters were great. Like that was a high energy show from my memory. Like that was one of those, like, we almost got trampled. Like, kids from North Penn and Souderton was a lot of people's first concert. We didn't really know how to behave, and they didn't have like serious security. It was a high school show, and like we're up on like a high school gym, stands. Things could have gone all kinds of south. People just running in and jumping all over each other. I mean, it's amazing no one got trampled at that show. But the Hooters were so high energy, and I remember thinking, even as a kid, like they ran out of material. Like they didn't have that many songs, and they ended up playing that like 3 Beatles covers at the end of the show because they had pretty much played all the songs they'd written at that point. It was 1986.
Eric has the best answer for what his first concert was. It was the Beatles. And I was like, how do you see anything else after that?
Yeah.
Wow. I used to listen to Amore on cassette on the bus all the time.
Yeah.
They're great, man.
That was like 1983. It was really early.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
The 10th and final of the top 10 countdown. What's your favorite Jawn of all time? Again, it can be anything you want it to be.
Favorite thing of all time? That is such a massive question. Favorite Jawn of all time? My goodness. I mean, my family's going to listen to this. I got to go with the birth of my kids. I mean, it's just the best thing that's ever happened. It's true. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing like that. I mean, if we're talking on a rock and roll podcast, probably opening for Flock of Seagulls at Ardmore Music Hall was a top moment in my musical life, without a doubt. I mean, we were playing at a huge venue that was that our band was named after, and I'm looking up and seeing the lead singer of Flock of Seagulls look down and watch our set, and I just was an out of body experience. Like, I can't believe this is happening. Something that Dave and I created a couple of years ago has turned into this, and almost everyone I knew was there watching us play, and we're opening for a band that I knew as a child, and that was a pretty top moment in my life,
It's
musically. Yeah.
absolutely incredible. Dave.
Um, Geez, Louise, favorite Jawn. I mean, at a broad level, I would say music. I would have to say in all of its different facets and all of the people that it enables me to connect with and to work with and create with and go to see shows with. You know, Matt and I both still go to a lot of shows, and I still go to a lot of shows with my wife, and I go to shows, you know, with my kids, and it's not a nice to have, it's like a need to have kind of part. So I'm always amazed when I meet people, colleagues who are just like, we've all met people, and you're like, oh, well, what do you listen to? And they're like, oh, everything. And I'm like, that's not my people in that way anyway.
Yeah.
But for me, it really is something I could never do without. But creating your own music and recording it and then hearing it on the radio or in any way, like, it's an amazing feeling. Now, having said all that, I will tell you that if and when we get Tyree Wallace out of prison, I'm not sure that I will ever achieve anything more satisfying, not just as like a lawyer, but just as like a human. Like it's too surreal to even try to quantify what it would be like. He's not quite as old as me. I think maybe the same. Well, he's probably not quite as old as any of us, but 26 years. You thought about every single thing we've done since the year 2000 and before the year 2000, like every single thing we've done and every place we've gone, every show we've seen, every song we've written, and every whatever. And he's been basically in either that building or one like it for all of that. It's kind of unfathomable. So I hope that becomes the biggest Jawn of all, because I said to Matt, like, if a miracle happens on Monday and he comes home, I'm going to have an impromptu party at my house on Monday afternoon, because that'll be incredible. But for Matt and me to be able with Ed and Scooter to weave things that we care about into our music and around our music and to use our music, we don't have the platform that bigger bands have, but it's our platform, and we do it with it what we can, and that's pretty gratifying, and no one can take that away. And if I didn't have it, I'd be pretty incomplete.
Well said. Very well said, my friend. So the EP comes out this fall. Still Got Time is the latest single that came out, and you said what was the next one that's coming in July?
Next one's coming out in June, end of June. End of June is called Floating Over Floodwaters. It's kind of a look at modern American history. And then there's a song called Changeable, which is about how we are all in flow and always changeable. And the last one is called Waves. It's a meditation. It's probably our most melodic and slowest song we've ever released. And that's going to round out this album, starting from Desiderata to Waves.
It's incredible. If these good, fine folks listening to this show would like to track you down on the internet, what's the best way to find you guys?
Athensville.com. It'll take you to everything. Athensville.com. You can, click right to our link tree, which you can listen to all of our music right there. And then it's also obviously our calendars on there, some merchandise. We got some good looking t-shirts, some reviews of our work that's come out from reviewers all over the world, actually. And some videos of us playing at various shows, and the videos that we've created for prior songs. And as soon as the Desiderata Free Tyree Wallace video is out, that will be right there. But Athensville.com is our hub.
I love it. Matt, Dave, thank you so much for doing this, not just for doing this, for creating incredible music and doing an insanely amazing thing with Tyree. And I really, really hope and pray that Monday goes. No, forget it. I am ecstatic to know that Monday is going to go well. And in your hands, I believe only good can
text
come.
us or email us on Monday and we'll make sure you know where we stand. But we'll keep this conversation going, and we'll connect you directly with Tyree because he's much more interesting to talk to.
I would love it. Absolutely amazing. My thanks again to Matt and Dave for joining me on the show today. And a special thanks to Tyree Wallace for taking the time to share his story as well. The new EP, Crossed with Lightning, is set to come out September 6th. And the singles, Desiderata, Free Tyree Wallace, Bury the Lead, and Still Got Time are available now on all streaming services. And be on the lookout for the next single, Floating Over Floodwaters, coming soon. You can catch Athensville at the Dawson Street Pub on October 8th and at 118 North on November 23rd. Links to all of these will, of course, as always, be in the show notes. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to subscribe to the Yo, That's My Jawn podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. And guys, it is never too late to get yourself a super awesome Jawn Scout Merit Badge for Citizenship of the World just by rating and reviewing us. Don't forget to visit www.yothat'smyjawn.com for the link tree with links to articles, merchandise, all of the previous episodes of this podcast, guest appearances on other podcasts, and more. And while you are there, be sure to sign up for the mailing list to get all of the updates delivered straight into your inbox. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/YoThat'sMyJawn for updates and live streams. Follow us on Instagram, Threads, and Twitter X at Yo That's My Jawn, and search Yo That's My Jawn on YouTube to find the Yo That's My Jawn YouTube channel. Like and subscribe the heck out of that ish. We want to hear from you. Reach out, and touch some Jawn. Oh, yes, folks. A lot of things going on. Make sure you're staying in contact. Make sure you're hanging out with us. And thank you so much for doing so. Blue skies. Until next time, everybody.
That's my Jawn. Displace the guilt and embrace the pleasure. You taste it, things that don't need to be measured.
Yo, That's My Jawn is a Lonely Monk production. Written and produced by yours truly, Nate Runkle. Theme song by me, under the moniker Nate 3.0. Special thanks to Fox Run Brands, DX Ferris, Andrew Scott, Maggie Poulos, Dan Drago, Natalie Runkle, and the beautifully vibrant and wickedly stunning Katie Daubney. If you or anyone you know has any ideas they would like to share or any guests they would like to hear on the podcast, please feel free to reach out to us at yothat'smyjawn@gmail.com or hit us up on the socials at Yo That's My Jawn. Until next time, be sure to displace the guilt and embrace the pleasure. Tilt your head back and shout to the world, Yo, that's my Jawn.